And welcome back. So it hasn't quite gone to plan this week in filming. My health's been up and down, so I'm trying to get done what I can. But today I thought I'd bring you down to the plot so I can actually get my gherkins in. Now they've been outside in pots for a little while now, and I could do with getting them in. What slowed me down is somewhere to actually put them. Last year we grew gherkins in a greenhouse and they got so big. But it was a fantastic harvest. Now, because of the small size of this greenhouse, I can't get them in here this year. We haven't got access to a random greenhouse on a different allotment this year. So they're going to have to grow outside. So it gave me a little bit of a predicament where I'm going to grow. So I'm going to have to do them outside. Now, I've chosen the most sheltered spot that I actually have got on the allotment, but it's in the orchard area. Now this has got all wood chip and hessian down to stop the weeds coming through, well, to reduce the weeds coming through. So I've had to improvise how I'm going to grow these gherkins this year, and fingers crossed we'll have a half decent summer and I'll get a decent crop off of them, because I absolutely love pickled gherkins. I literally can eat a jar at a time. So I had an idea about putting these gherkins into the ground. I've got loads and loads of these excess Tesco crates that were damaged and were thrown away by the company. Now they've all got holes already in the bottom, so I've just lined it with some hessian and filled it with some compost. Now I have added some extra little bits of manure and things like that inside the actual crate itself to give it a really nice feed for these gherkins to actually go into. And all I'm going to do is plant it up against this grid that I've actually managed to put on. Not the most securest, but it should be absolutely fine for these gherkins. And I can always put a few extra poles in. So I'm just going to get these in and give them a really good water. Now I'm only going 2. Because I think any more than that, it might be a bit too much for this amount of compost. Now with these crates you can get thinner ones and you can get deeper ones. Now if you can get the deeper ones and get the compost to fill it, do the deeper ones. You've got a little bit more options on what you want to grow in this. Now on the front of this I could actually put something else in here as well. Maybe something that's not too hungry. But I'm going to leave my options open just for a little while longer, because I think I've actually got something that may be okay for this. And it's as simple as that. Now I have got room for one more crate of something climbing, but I'm going to hold off. I don't want to be in a rush to plant every single place right now. There's still a long way to the growing season, and I want to make sure that I've got room for everything that I want to grow. And I might come across a pack of seeds that you can actually sow this time of year that would happily grow in something like that. You've got lettuces, you've got beetroots, you've got all manner of things that you could actually put into these tubs. You can even just put some flowers, which in fact, I've got some marigolds that need repotting up. I think I might actually just plant them in the fronts of these tubs. So I've got some pretty marigolds to go alongside my cucumbers. I've got loads of sunflower plants. I'm absolutely desperate to get in. So I need to start figuring out where I'm going to put those. Now, I always grow excess because you always lose quite a few to slugs and snails. Now we have used some slug pellets this year. Shock horror. But they're organic. It's not the same as the stuff that is really bad for everything in the food chain. And it's kind of hit and miss whether it's worked or not. We thought we would give it a try, more so my husband. But it's working okay. It's actually put a lot of slugs off. Now it's one of those things I actually only use for a short period of the actual season. Whereas we will use beer traps and we will go along and take out as many slugs and snails as we can. We can't be here all the time. But I find that most of the slug damage that we get is when the plants are very small and transplanted out. At that time, that's the biggest risk. So I think once I get past a certain stage in plants, I no longer use anything and I'll just find the slugs and snails as I go along. It's a very short space in time that I actually use anything like that. But I am going to get some nematodes this year. Well, I'm actually working on making my own nematodes this year. It's a little side project I've got, even if it is a little bit gruesome. Now, if you've followed us from before, you'll know that we try and make quite large amounts of compost. Now, we actually filled this one up until it was about 2 foot higher than the actual pallets itself. Now, we did this 3 or 4 times and then we let it rot down till about, I think it dropped about 2 foot, 2.5 foot. And we mainly use grass clippings, hedge clippings, cardboard, paper, anything that we've got from the home, anything that we can scrounge off local gardeners, local landscapers. Got to the stage where it needed a good turn, so we've actually put it into the second bay because we have a 3-bay system. So when this is full, it's left for a little while, and if we've got excess, we then move on to the 3rd bay and start filling that. And by the time that's normally filled, that one's then settled enough to turn into the middle bay, and then the 3rd one gets turned into the middle bay as well. So we can actually got a good rotation on for our compost. Now, we keep it covered to give it that extra little bit of warmth, but as you can see, it's actually already started to break down and it's looking quite good. This, fingers crossed, won't be used to the end of the year anyway, so it's still got plenty of time to rot down. Now, this amount that's in here, now it's about 2/3 full. After this first turn, this will probably go down to probably about half of this actual compost bay, and by the time we put another set on there, hopefully by the end of it, we'll actually have a nice deep amount of compost to use towards the end of the year. This is still very, very warm. As you can see, it's rotting down very well. Now you can see the chicken coop bedding and bits of grass, twigs, all sorts of stuff. This is fantastic for the soil. Now, I have ordered a compost thermometer, but I do know this compost pile has definitely got hot enough to get rid of any weed seeds. Using the amount of grass that we use, mixed in with leaves and brown to stop it sliming up and getting anaerobic, we're able to create extremely hot heaps. It also helps with the size of the heap. Now, this one, I'm pretty sure it got probably over hot, but now it's come down to a much more acceptable temperature for it to carry on rotting down. So I'm quite looking forward to being able to get this. Now, as soon as we'd emptied this first one and turned it into the middle, we actually had a massive delivery of hedge clippings and grass. Now, I'm absolutely fine to use these hedge clippings. In fact, I know exactly where they've come from. They've come from my local street. Now, the local groundsman gives me all his grass and hedge clippings, anything like that for us to go in. Now, this will give a lovely airy compost. Now, some of these twigs probably won't rot down that well, and we could have done with shredding some of the stuff at least. I'm happy for this to be able to create air pockets within my compost. I think this will allow more air to get into it, and now we're going to start getting even more grass. We could do with having a little bit more air within our compost pile. But it's not bad for one delivery. Now, I don't think we could do what we do on our plot without actually making our own compost. There was just no way we could afford to do the beds the way we do. But believe me, the no dig makes it so much easier once you've got past that initial stage. Yes, you are still going to get weeds, but trust me, after having to weed heavy, normal soil, clay, having to weed that to having to weed a no dig bed, there's just no comparison. It is so much easier. I've even managed to mulch my strawberries. Every year I keep saying I'm going to do it, and every year I fail to do it. I've managed to get hold of some straw, which I've gently placed underneath all the flowering strawberries. Now, because this area is quite wet a lot of the times, it soaks in a lot of the excess rain off the allotment. I wanted to try and keep any strawberries off that wet soil as much as possible. But it's actually looking really nice, and I can't wait to have those fresh strawberries. All these pretty much were brand new last year, so I didn't really get a harvest. And what I did get was very deformed fruit. I think literally 4 or 5 fruit. So I'm really hoping that the variety I chose last year, which I cannot remember what it is because I've got the memory of a fish. I'm hoping that they're actually going to be really tasty. Now, in the future, I really would love to be able to afford a freeze dryer. They use them a lot more in America than they do in the UK. But I absolutely love freeze-dried raspberries and strawberries. I think they're so delicious in cereals. And dehydrated fruits aren't quite the same as a freeze-dried fruit. Don't think I've got about £3,500 to £4,000 though spare at the moment. So that may just have to wait, probably till retirement. Now, this last week, I've actually been quite busy sowing some seeds. And a few things I've actually sowed is 1, turnips. I think these probably need to be pricked out a little bit. But I sowed these about 7 days ago, and they've just started coming through the last couple of days. But they're really starting to sprint. I've also got, I think, 3 different types of swede. This is best of all. Now, I've individually, apart from maybe a couple that I've maybe oversown, but these are all individual. So once we've got space somewhere, and these have got a bit bigger, of course, these will go into the ground. Now, these are probably going to go in the potato bed. Now, there has been more potatoes that have come up, but it's been a really bad year for us personally for potatoes. And I think next year I may get my own way and will grow more in the pots like we used to, making life much easier for digging and easier in general. And you can just fit them wherever you want to go. The potato plot that my husband's done and dug over has took up so much room. And now the potatoes have come up extremely patchy. It's finding something for those spaces to grow. So I'm going to have to persuade him next year to grow it differently, I think. I've also re-sowed my kohlrabi. I was going to sow some more anyway, but a little bit of issue with the kohlrabi. Just literally a few days ago, it was looking beautiful and lush, and we came down yesterday to decimation. Now, it's our own fault. We knew pigeons liked that kind of thing, and I didn't cover it. I was supposed to just cover it with a small amount of netting, and I didn't get round to doing it. They may pull through, but I haven't got massive hopes for them. But I'll cover them anyway, and you never know, they may do. But I've got some more growing. So when I do put them into the ground, I'll make sure I cover them. I've also re-sown some cos lettuce, some parsley, some coriander, things that we eat and crop on a regular basis.